So how'd you get your start in music?
Okay. The first thing I want to say is, hi, my name is Orlando Marin, the last Mambo King. And I've taken that title in these last few years because I'm the last orchestra leader in the mambo and salsa industry that comes from the 1950s when the mambo era started in New York, especially in the Bronx where I lived and I was born, and in Manhattan and all over New York, and actually all over the world. The music comes basically from Cuba originally, and it spread to Puerto Rico and Santo Domingo, and it came to New York, and we picked it up and we did the Cuban music in the New York Puerto Rican style, because all the Puerto Ricans were the first ones to come to New York City and New York State. So actually my beginning was not only in the making an orchestra, but I was born with a blessing from God, having gone to college for music in heaven. So when I was born, I was blessed with music and love. And I was singing and dancing since I was 2 or 3 years old, and I was understanding music when I heard it, and I would sing in English and Spanish. My mother noticed that I had some talent, and she had my father at that time, who was working in Chase Bank. He would take me to a studio in Manhattan to learn tap dancing and singing in English. My mother passed away when I was 10, and so I gave it up. And I went, by that time I was living on Longwood Avenue, near Prospect Avenue and Jackson, and in the Bronx, and I stopped singing and dancing, and I went to play the game in the street when I was already like about 10 or 11 years old, a game called handball and stickball. There were no cars in those years. We're talking about 1945, when I moved to Longwood Avenue and Dawson Street. I lived also on Kelly Street, and I played stickball, and I was always a leader of the kids, and I would tell them stories at night on the stoop of my house on Dawson Street, and I would make up these stories, and these stories of scary stories, and they would love it. And then they would run home, and they would be scared when on the way home. On the way home, I was scared too. I was good at telling stories. But I also used to draw. Since I was a child, I used to cover the comic book industry, and I learned how to draw, and I wanted to be a comic book illustrator. So when my mother passed away, I played ball, but during school, kindergarten and up, every day I was drawing in school. And when I was in junior high school on Kelly Street, there was a school called PS 52. I became the artist of the school because they saw that I was drawing every day, and I was drawing very well. They made me the artist of the school. Not only that, I was rehearsing my band in the school. I had the band in the Bronx of the youngest teenagers learning how to play what they called mambo and cha-cha-cha and merengue and stuff like that. Music from the Caribbean originating from Cuba. So I was told to play every Friday at PS 52 so we could keep the children away from the streets and the drugs. So every Friday for years I was playing at the school, and I was rehearsing my orchestra, so it paid off for me. I would rehearse my orchestra there all the time, even before I played. So they said, if you don't rehearse, you're going to have to pay for the room to rehearse. So I said, okay, no problem. And it worked out good for me, and I found a lot of great musicians who were young teenagers, starting with a young piano player by the name of Eddie Palmieri, a good friend of mine, piano player. He was 14. I had a singer by the age of 15 called Joe Quijano, and he was my singer, Puerto Rican also. Palmieri was Puerto Rican, and they're still in the music. And I had a kid called Chicky Perez, who was a bongo player, very good. He was with me for years. His uncle, his name was Luis Huicochea, conga player. He played with me for years. And I had trumpet players who were young trumpet players, and they was very good. Larry Chino, trumpet player. I had 3 or 4 trumpet players. And we developed a 10-piece orchestra in PS 52 during those years. So in 2 years after we started, by 1953, we were performing in the biggest club in New York City called the Palladium Ballroom on 53rd and Broadway, right across the street from the Ed Sullivan Show, which was the biggest show in the world. Every Sunday, Ed Sullivan Show. I used to pray, oh God, let me be on the Ed Sullivan Show. It finally happened, but under God's terms. I was drafted into Korea in 1958. I was drafted into the Army and sent to Korea. And that was when, right after the Korean War calmed down a little bit, but they were still fighting and killing each other. And that was 1958. And in 1959, I got in a contest in the Army for music. And I picked up two dancers, and we made a trio, and we made an arrangement. I made the arrangement of the dance music. They were dancing Mambo and Cha-Cha-Cha and 6/8 Afro-Cuban music. The drumming I played was African drumming from thousands of years ago, Afro-Cuban drumming, and they called it Mambo. And they were in Korea, and we did this contest all over the world, all the United States soldiers. Out of all the world, there were like 2.5 million soldiers, and out of those people, we picked up like 150 American soldiers who were very talented, and they were sent to Washington, D.C. In Washington, D.C., they had the final competition. We didn't win the final competition, but we ranked very high, and then we were invited to the Ed Sullivan Show to represent the United States Army on the Ed Sullivan Show on a Sunday. The show was a tremendous hit. I have videos of it, and the show was excellent. After that, they sent me back to Korea to dig ditches and to continue with the protection of South Korea from North Korea. And when I came out in 1960, I was very fortunate to have auditioned for Alegre Records because of a gentleman called Mike Amadeo, who was an artist and a recording star, and he heard me performing one day, and he recommended me to Al Santiago, the owner of Alegre Records, so that I could record for Alegre. And that's what happened. He called me to record, and I went to record for Alegre Records, and we recorded in 1960, 1961, and the record I made was a big hit. And my first big hit was La Casa, a song about your house is burning down, because we were rehearsing at the piano player's house one day during the week, and a fire started across the street, and we had to stop the rehearsal and open the windows. The firemen were all blowing their horns. The whole building was burning down, and one of the musicians, Tito Jimenez, started saying, "Corre, Marcela, your house is burning down. Run, run, corre, Marcela." And it became a song. The piano player, Paquito, took the piano, we started playing a vamp, and we started making choruses and songs. Then I said, hold it, we have to rehearse because we have an important job Saturday. So we rehearsed, and the song kept going. We played it, and we built a great song out of it. And the people loved it. It became a big hit worldwide, especially the country called Colombia, because there was a new rhythm called, not a rhythm, but actually a word called pachanga. It was called pachanga rhythm, but it was actually mambo. And they've made new steps and stuff. It's still a big hit in Colombia. I go every year to Colombia to perform. And I went to the Hollywood Palladium and performed, replacing Tito Puente on drums with his band. And we backed up a great Cuban singer, and the singer was fabulous. We did a great show, and I played the drums, and I was still in Army uniform. That was 1959. But when I came out, I continued my career, and my band had broken up, and I had to start with a new band, a small group. I made a sextet, and I went to Long Island to open up the field for music, for Mambo and Latin American music. And I played in Long Island for many, many years in all the top clubs. And I continued playing all around New York and wherever they called me to play. I'm very fortunate and lucky to have been chosen by God to do this work. I represent the Latin community because the Latin community was not treated well, especially the Puerto Ricans. Since I was a child, I saw that they didn't like the Puerto Ricans, so I chose to represent the Puerto Ricans. One day I went to buy the Hit Parade, a magazine with songs in English, the latest songs, which you can hear on radio and television. And one day I saw a magazine for black people. So you had one for black people and one for white people. And me being 11 years old, I said to myself, my psychology, I said, this is prejudice. There's a magazine for white people and one for black people. Where's the magazine for Latins and Puerto Ricans? So I said, I'm going to represent God. I made a petition to God to let me represent the Puerto Ricans and the Latins with music, with love and music. And God opened the door for me because in 1950 I started my band and all the doors opened. I ended up going to Korea, and everything is history. You can see on YouTube, you can see all my recordings and the videos I have done all over. So I have been chosen to do this work, and I've tried to do it representing all the good people and bringing many people from different colors and religions together so they can dance and love each other and have a great time. Thank you, Lord. God bless you all.